All right, good day, scholars. This is the video where we're going to actually do the programming for our line width slider and for our dot size spinner here. So you should already have those in there. What we're going to do next is, first off, just make sure that you have your elements in your dot size right. So they look like this. You got small dot, comma, space, big dot, comma, space, bigger dot. Okay, and you may have think you have to name these, but you don't because there's only one. We already know what that slider is going to be for. So we're just going to go to our blocks here, and we're gonna get started. So first off, let me zoom out a little bit to get us some space. This is our code for the color spinner. We have our code for the dragging a line to draw a line. We have a code for drawing our circle, and we also have the code for our white button. We're going to look at this code in a little bit, but first let's program our slider. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to slider here on the left side. So I'm going to go over here to the left side and click on slider 1. And I'm going to click on when slider position changed. Okay, so when the user changes the position of the slider, what's it going to do? What it's going to do is it's going to set the canvas. If we go over to the left here and we find our canvas, boom, there's canvas 1. We're going to set the canvas line width. So if we scroll down to the greens here, set canvas, there it is, set canvas line width 2. I'm going to grab that and put that into our little box. Come on. There we go. Okay, and let's zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little bit closer. Set canvas line width 2. And what we want that to change to is basically, right, we could put a number there, right? We could just grab like a number and put that in there like we did with the radius. But what we want to do actually is we want to make that to allow the user to be able to change that by using the actual slider. So all we're going to do is we're going to go to slider 1, and we're going to grab slider thumb position. Boom, there we go. Set canvas 1 line width to slider 1 thumb position. So all that's going to do is after they change the position of slider 1, it's going to set the canvas's line width to whatever they chose, basically. I think you might have been able to click here and do that. That might also work, but it's basically the same thing, I believe. I could be wrong on that. So we're gonna leave that like that, and we'll test it and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it later. So that's the slider. That's done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this code right here, because if we go back to our design view, we just programmed this. We just programmed the line width. What we want to program is the dot size spinner, and that is we want the user to be able to change the size of the dot that they create when they click on the canvas. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go to that dot size spinner and we're going to pull out after selecting, much like we did with the, if we look at it real quick, much like we did with the color spinner up here, right? So after the color spinner selecting, we're going to do something very similar to this with the dot size, except what we need actually is we need variables, okay? Because if we look at this code, right? So let's move this out of the way. Let's give us some more space. Let's move these down here. If we look at this code here, guys, you'll notice the radius is set to 10, okay? So anytime they touch the canvas, it creates a circle. Where they touched it, that's the XY coordinates, with a radius of 10. If we just have this blue box, this little blue text box here with that number in it, we can't change that. What we need to do is we need to get rid of this. So I'm going to get rid of this 10 and I'm going to delete it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a variable, okay? And if we go to the left here, you'll see they're orange. And in MIT Admin, all variables are orange. And we're going to initialize a global variable. So I have an initialized global name, and we're going to just call this dot size. Okay? And we're going to set the dot size to 8. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to set the global dot size to 8. Okay? Now, I can set my radius to that variable. So I can go back to variables, I can grab get, and I can say get global dot size. So now this code's done for this. All right, because we have our initial global variable here, it's going to, when it runs this code, it's going to look at the radius and says, okay, what's the global dot size? And it's going to look at the number here. Okay. Now what we're going to do with our code is we're going to have our code change this number instead of the number in here. Because this is a variable. What variable means, the word variable just means it's able to be changed, and we can change this, but we can't change it if it was stuck to this, okay? So what we're going to do is we have an initial global variable of dot size that we're going to change, and what we're going to allow it to change to are some other variables. So what I'm going to do is, and this is going to seem a little overwhelming, I'm going to go and grab 3 more of these because we need one of them each for each of the dot sizes we want the user to be able to change to, okay? So this is going to be called small. This is going to be called big. And this is going to be called bigger. All right. And again, we're going to grab some math blocks here. And we're not doing any actually math. We're going to make 8 the default. So the dot size is set to 8 at the beginning, and which is going to be our small size. Okay. Our big size will be about 16. Sure. We'll just double it. And we're going to grab one more, and we're going to make the bigger size 32. Okay. So these are our, let's move these over to the side here. These are the ones we're going to change this variable into, okay? So if I have this variable changing, it's going to change this automatically because this radius is referencing this number, and then this number is going to change based on these values we have here. And the way these values are going to be used to change this value is through our dot spinner. So what we're going to do is for our dot spinner, we're going to use some more conditional statements. So I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to go to control, and I'm going to grab an if then. And all we're going to do is the same thing we did before. We're going to grab some math here, and we're going to say, we're going to have it get the selection. So if whatever the user selected is equal to the small dot selection, right? So small dot, and the reason I use that specific, those specific words is because those are the same words I used right here for my elements in the string. Okay. If that's selected and it says if their selection is small dot, we want the global dot size. Okay, we want this global dot size to change, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to get set global dot size to, and if it's a small dot, we want it to be this. So we're going to grab this. We want it to get the small size. Okay. And then at that point, right, if this code ran and they selected small dot, it would change the global dot size, which is this, to global small, which is this, which means the radius that it's going to use is 8. Okay. So let's do the next one. And what I'm going to do here is pretty fancy. So I'm going to alt click or right click. If you have a Chromebook, hold down the alt button next to the space bar, or if you have a mouse, you can always right click. I think you can use 2 fingers to right click as well on the Chromebook. And we're going to duplicate. And I'm going to put the duplication right underneath there. And we're not done though, so I need to change this obviously. So we need to do our next one. Our next one here is big dot, right? So let me double check. So big dot, let's go back to our designer. Big dot's the next one in our list. Fantastic, that is correct. And if their selection is big dot, we want it to set the global dot size to global big. Okay, same thing for the next one. Oops, let me scroll down a little bit. Again, I'm going to duplicate. Get selection. If it's select to bigger dot, again, I'm going to double check. Bigger dot's what I have here, right? Yes, it is. Set global dot size to global bigger. Okay. Now, if we look at this code, let's run through this code here. Let's zoom out here and let's run through this code. We have our initial global dot size here. We have our small, big, and bigger dot sizes here. This code only happens when the user touches the canvas. So we'll put this over here and we'll put this here. And this is just an example. Okay. So let's pretend we're the user. So I'm going to go to the canvas here, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to click on here. So I'm going to click on this global dot size spinner. If I click on, let's say I click on bigger dot. Okay, so I click on here, and I'm going to click on bigger dot when it pops up. what our code does is after I select that, it's going to say, okay, did they select small dot? No. Skip this, go to the next one. Did they select big dot? Nope, they didn't. Skip this, go to the next one. Did they select bigger dot? They did. What the app's going to do is going to set the global dot size, which is this, okay, to whatever the global bigger is, which is this. So it's going to set this number to 32. So the actual code is going to change this to 32. Okay, don't do that, but just as an example, it's going to set that to 32, which means when they touch the canvas, it's going to run this code, it's going to draw a circle, it's going to get where they touched on the canvas, and it's going to draw a circle with a radius of global dot size. In this case, because I selected bigger dot, it changed this number to 32, and the dot size will be 32 pixels radius. Okay, and that's just an example. So make sure you have everything on the screen here as it shows. Make sure all your numbers are correct. Make sure all of your capitalizations for everything is correct, because that could give you some issues. And then you are ready to test the application.